I don't work out my face, but I'm a decent looking guy, so I don't have any problems in that field.
Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to the Ergogenic Podcast. This week, James is going to be interviewing Vinnie Tortorich from the Angriest Trainer Podcast. It's a really popular podcast on iTunes. If you haven't heard it or haven't listened to any of the episodes, just go to the iTunes store, type in Vinnie Tortorich, that's Vinnie Tortorich. Now, during this interview, James is going to be talking to Vinnie about his new #1 best-selling book called Fitness Confidential, which, by the way, I just finished reading. I would definitely recommend. James is also going to be talking to Vinnie about his views on diet and training, as well as his views on the entire fitness industry as a whole. Before we start, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Athletic Edge Nutrition. You can check out their website at www.aenutrition.com.
All right, so welcome to the Ergogenic Podcast today, guys. We have a very special guest for you guys today on this episode, Vinnie Tortorich, if I've said that correctly there, Vinnie. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
So we'd like to get Vinnie on the show to kind of give you guys a little background on himself first. So, Vinnie, if you could actually give us a little introduction on yourself, kind of how you got into this game here, how you got into exercise and training, and fill our listeners in with that.
Well, if we're going to go back to the beginning of me doing any exercise and training, I started in 1970. I guess it was 1970.
Wow.
I started lifting weights. I was 8 years old. And kept doing it, kept working out, kept doing the whole thing all the way through high school. Of course, I played every sport. You know, I was a football player, baseball player, basketball player. And I ran track. I led it 16 times before I left high school. That's just me bragging. But then I went to college on a football scholarship to Tulane University. And before I graduated from Tulane, they had hired me on as their assistant strength training coach for the athletic program. But also they had me teaching a PE class in weightlifting, health, strength, and conditioning. And that was the beginning of my career. I then went on to a private school in New Orleans, Newman School, most notable for the Manning kids, Peyton Manning, Cooper Manning, and the younger brother. Why is his name slipping my mind? But I was at the school that had two different Super Bowl MVPs that graduated from there. And yes, I did work with two of the three Manning brothers, Peyton being one of them. Eli was too young when I was there. But from there, I moved to Beverly Hills and became, at some point, the Beverly Hills guy. That was around 22 years ago. I became the Beverly Hills trainer guy and kept doing that until earlier today, which, you know, is still my career. I started doing podcasts about a year and 2 months ago. Maybe about 14 months I started doing podcasts, and I've been doing that. I was shocked that anyone actually listens to this thing. My podcast is called the Angriest Trainer Podcast, and I know you're going to ask me a question about why I call myself the Angriest Trainer, because
Yes.
I'm not an angry guy. I'm not ticked off at the world or anything else. I'm a very friendly, happy guy. But we call me the Angriest Trainer. And just recently I released my first book on fitness called Fitness Confidential. And as you know, it's been topping the charts now for 5 weeks on Amazon. It spent the whole first month in the #1 best-selling fitness book on Amazon. The only reason it's not there anymore is that after a month, you can't be the bestseller, new release anymore. But it's still in the top 10. It's still one of the hottest fitness books selling. And as you know, there's hundreds of thousands and even millions of books on Amazon. And this book is up there. And there's a reason why it's up there. It's the first book of its kind that's not lying to people. Now, I know I'm bragging about my own book, but hey, that's what we're doing here. We're talking about why this book just all of a sudden came out of nowhere and transcended, all the other books. Why are people climbing to this book? What piece of magic? And I think that's what you and I are going to be talking about tonight. Or I could be wrong. We're going to talk about whatever you want to talk about, but you asked me to give an introduction, so there you have it.
Awesome. Well, that's exactly what I want to get into a little bit, actually, is about your book there. So if maybe you could tell us a little bit kind of like the outline of the book and, what people can expect when they pick it up.
Well, when I started doing the book, over the years, because I'm the Beverly Hills guy and I work with a lot of actors and actresses and producers. Producers love to find projects. And for years, they've been trying to hook me to an infomercial product or something they can sell on TV or something they can put on the internet to make millions of dollars. And I've categorically turned it all down because as a human being, I might be the dumbest human being on the planet, but I refuse to lie to people. I refuse to tell them that you could get 10 pounds off in 10 minutes or get, 8-pack abs in 5 minutes a day, or all you have to do is use this potion or powder or pill or this product and you're going to have some kind of special thing happen to you. And even when it came to books, I had written a couple of scripts for books and they all said the same thing. You gave us steak and all we wanted was sizzle. We don't care about steak. We just want sizzle. And you haven't given us any product we can sell with your book. And the same thing happened with Fitness Confidential. I got together with a Hollywood producer and actually my close friend, Dean Laurie, who has written shows such as Arrested Development, My Wife and Kids. He's written several movies. Major Pain comes to mind. There's just tons of movies Dean Laurie has penned, and he's also penned several books. Dean happens to be my close friend, and he kept saying to me, you need to put a book out. I didn't want to, and I told Dean why. I said, Dean, I'm not going to put another prescriptive book out on how to lose 10 pounds tomorrow, because the world is still fat. We're getting fatter by the minute, and I don't want that. And he said, what if we can write a book just telling the truth? And I thought about it for 5 minutes, and I said, yeah, let's do that. But we knew when we did it that nobody would want to, none of the big publishing houses would touch it. And when we took it out to the big publishing houses, and when I say big publishing houses, my agent took it to the likes of HarperCollins, Simon Schuster, Bantam Books, you name it, all the top 22 or 23 big houses. And oddly enough, 2 or 3 of them came back to me saying, we would love to do this book if you would cut it in half and only leave the prescriptive and take the rest out. And we refused to do that. We said no. And Dean actually said to me, he said, you just committed literary suicide because we could have gotten a lot of money by cutting this book in half. But I refused to do it. And he actually agreed with me. We took the book, we put it out ourselves as a self-published book. And by the way, most self-published books sell for $1.99 because they want to sell something. Mm-hmm. We're selling it at the same price as the big boys, and people started finding the book right away, and they're handing it to friends and telling friends to buy it, and so on and so forth. That's why we've remained in the top selling books for the past, month, 5 weeks now. And we're shocked by it, by the way. We're not high and mighty about this. Nobody is more shocked than Vinnie Tortorich and Dean Laurie about what this book is doing right now.
Wow. Okay. So you're saying with the book there, you had a lot of pushback from the publishers because you didn't want to compromise on, the content and everything that he put in there. So that's obviously part of the reason probably why it's sitting at the top of the charts right now, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, let me add to that. Hold on to that. One of the things we do in the book is we don't give a big prescription as to how to lose weight. We tell people how to lose weight. We also tell people how to get in shape very simply. And then the rest of the book goes on to teach you things that you would never know. It teaches you how to find a good trainer, how to spot a bad trainer, how to know when you're being bamboozled when you go to sign up at a gym. most people walk into a gym and they don't realize that they're walking into the equivalent of a used car lot. Mm-hmm. And as I say in the book, the only difference between a gym and a used car lot is if you leave the used car lot, you may have a car with you. When you leave the gym, all you've bought was a promise. And unless you walk back in and know how to use the gym, you have nothing. Mm-hmm. And that's, we take those things and explain to people how to use that in the book. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to add that.
No, those are awesome points, especially those are things you don't get in a lot of books. When you first walk into the gym, like you're saying, what to look out for. I personally, I'm a personal trainer. I used to work at a commercial gym. Now I kind of just do it, one-on-one myself there. But you'd have to sell these packages, right? And you'd have to get the person to sign up for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and they get a better price if they do more, and make sure that they pay off a card, and make sure, I felt really bad doing it, so I got out of it. And I'm guessing you expand upon that a lot more in the book and everything. So those are big points that people don't read about in other nutrition or training books out there. So that'd be some good information for people to have on those topics.
Your partner, John, who has the book, I'm sorry, we dropped the ball on getting you a copy. The people working with me were supposed to do that. But John was saying the same thing. He was talking about the book and how he goes, wow, the way you describe gyms and trainers and the way they try to make us sell people nothing. Mm-hmm. He goes, you really hit that. I mean, we hear that over and over and over. And we don't stop there. I literally, kind of the way Anthony Bourdain took Kitchen Confidential and told you everything about the restaurant world, we did the same thing in Fitness Confidential, which is how we got the name, Fitness Confidential.
Oh, wow. Okay. And with the book, too, when did you release the book? Was this a few months back?
No, it's only been out 5 weeks, so it's a month and 1 week. Okay. Yeah. Tomorrow makes a month, and tomorrow makes 5 weeks, yeah.
5 weeks on the dot. Awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations on your success there. And where can people find your book if they're looking to get it?
The only place you cannot find it is if you went to a bookstore like a Barnes & Noble.
Okay.
But here's how you can find it. If you go to Amazon.com, you can get it there in paperback, Kindle. You could go to iBooks and get it, iBook style. You could get it Nook. Any kind of electronics you could get it on. The book is available. And also, because the book is so successful, a lot of my fans from the Angriest Trainer Podcast, we have a big audience there. A lot of them have read the book. That was my biggest audience to buy the book, was my own audience. I think that's why it came out of the gate so hard and so fast, and it allowed other people to find it. But these people have read the book, and now they want me to do an audio book. I'm telling you first, this is an exclusive for you.
Awesome.
James. The book, I've already done the audio. I'm reading it. I'm reading my own book, which they usually tell authors not to read their own material. But I think my audience wanted it in that same quirky voice that I have. I don't have your basic broadcaster voice. So I read the book. Whether that's good or bad, we don't know. But, it's out there. It's not out yet. It's going to be out in a couple of weeks. But any way you can possibly get the book, paper form, it's out in paperback on Amazon or any other electronic, you can get the book.
Awesome. Okay. And you were just talking about your podcast and your audience there. Can you tell us a little bit about your podcast? What kind of topics you center on, and where people can go to listen to that?
I'm on both, iTunes and Stitcher, just like most. And I know probably like you get most of your people from iTunes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys get, I barely get anything from Stitcher. It's not even close to iTunes.
Same here.
We don't really know how my audience grew. The Internet's a weird thing. I was talking to your partner, John, about this, because he knows what my numbers are. We talked about that. And he said, man, how did it get that big? And I said, I don't know. The only thing I do know is we're honest. I only speak the truth. I've said on the podcast several times, if Gatorade came to me, Coca-Cola Corporation said, hey, if you would advertise Gatorade, we'd give you $1 million, I wouldn't take it. And that's the truth. I refuse to perpetuate a lie. Gatorade is nothing but sugar water. We talk about those kinds of things. We talk about, different types of training. I know you guys are into bodybuilding. Your thing is into all kinds of stuff, and that's what I love about you guys. But mine is everything from triathlons to running marathons to lifting weights to nutrition to how to lose weight. We cover a broad spectrum of topics. I do want to warn your audience about this. There is explicit material in my podcast. Me and my co-host Anna Vocino, we throw around the F word if it's appropriate to throw it around. We don't just sit there. We've been called the Howard Stern of podcasting. We know we're being called that because we talk about Anna's boobies on the show because she has boobs in the world. But it's not just about that. We do that for humor to keep people interested. But we also do real content. We have people on. I think the other reason we have such a large audience is because since I'm in Hollywood, we do get celebrities on. We've had Gary Taubes, who has written several best-selling books, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It, The Calorie Myth, and he's a New York Times writer. We've had Minnie Driver, one of my favorite actresses, on. My better half, a Bond girl, Serena Scott Thomas, has been on several times. Andrea Anders, Howie Mandel. People love when Howie's on. So we have different celebrities come on the show and talk about their diet and how we do that kind of thing. And people like hearing the celebrities and to hear that they're not special. They have problems just like everyone else, and they really let their hair down on my podcast. And I think that's why people like it.
Nice. Okay. And definitely got to have that entertainment factor there, and that's awesome that you get that celebrity perspective, so people can say, hey, they're just like you and me. They've got issues with weight control or body fat or these issues with training. So that's a good perspective to get. Now I know you've mentioned this a little bit before, but are you currently training any like celebrities or athletes, or any of you trained recently that you can talk about a little bit?
I'm not training any athletes currently. As a matter of fact, I don't train many athletes at all. The only kind of real athletes I train now are some ultra athletes, some ultra runners. Shannon Griefer, who has done Badwater more times than I think any other woman. As a matter of fact, she was the first woman to go there and back at Badwater. She's a client. As far as the celebrities, everyone wants me to name the celebrities, and I have contracts with most of them, so I can't really mention. I mentioned Howie because, Howie's more than a client. He's actually a good friend of mine. People see us in restaurants together. I get to fly around on his private jet. He takes me with him.
Very jealous.
Yeah, I'm jealous too. That I don't have a jet like that, But Howie and I go places together. He talks about me in his shows. So I mentioned him every now and then. I'll mention Jeannie Francis, who your age group doesn't even know who Jeannie Francis is anymore. But people see us in restaurants because over the years, Jeannie and I have become close friends. But all of the big celebrities, some of the singers and writers and some of the actors and actresses you see on the red carpet, I'm not at liberty to mention it because I have a contract that stops me from doing it. Okay. But if you read between the lines and some of the people who might appear on the show, or sometimes people see me places, you can go on the internet and find out who I might be training.
Okay.
It's not that hard to find. I just can't say it.
And do you offer for people out there may be interested? Do you offer personal training services, distance-wise, or just in person, or do you offer those services of any type?
I do a couple of things. If you're asking if I have, as what we call lay people, yes. And I actually like working with those people more because the pressure is not on as much. Usually if an actress you ever noticed an actress, they'll have a baby, and then 3 weeks later they're on the runway and they look perfectly flat?
Yeah.
It's usually someone like me that's doing that. And the pressure is really on for us to get them there. And I don't like that part of my job. I'll get a 300-pound housewife who, desperately wants to lose weight. That's what wakes me up in the morning. I cry with them. I really do. I'm not trying to be a pompous ass. I sometimes, I'm there. I'm rolling my sleeves up with those people and cry with them. And also, since the podcast started, and you guys may have this too, we had a demand for people who wanted to talk to me on the phone and have an hour consultation. So on VinnieTortorich.com, someone can go right there and press, it's a button called the Call Me Maybe button. And you put in the information, I get the email, we set up a phone consult, and we do it that way. And I'm glad I'm doing that because I get to reach more people and help more people, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, okay. And kind of, if you could expand upon maybe a little bit about your training philosophy and what makes you different than so many of the trainers out there. I know you're not a fan of that kind of cookie-cutter approach or anything like that. So can you kind of expand upon a little bit about how your training's different than maybe what other people have seen with kind of the fad programs out there?
You said the key words. There is no fad. If people think they're going to get with me and lose 10 pounds in 5 minutes or 20 pounds or there's going to be some kind of trickery, that's not going to happen. I refuse to do it. My thing, I have a T-shirt on. I don't think you can't see my T-shirt on, right? I have my, see if I can do this, my NSNG T-shirt.
Yep.
My hashtag NSNG, no sugars, no grains. We keep people away from sugars and grains. And we do that by making, you can eat anything else. You can eat high fat. We have people, I have athletes not even eating carbs and doing just fine in athletic events, actually PRing in their endeavors. So that's my big trick, cutting out sugars, cutting out grains. It's not a fad. It's a lifestyle change. It's a paradigm shift. That's what I've been doing for 30 years. It works well. The one thing I tell people to stay away from are trainers who, got a certificate. Can you see my air quotes here?
Yes, we can.
Got a certificate on the internet or went to a weekend course and read some book and became a trainer. That's my biggest pet peeve. I always tell people to make sure their trainer has some kind of real certification, hopefully a college degree. And we talk about that in the book on how to find those guys. Sometimes a PE teacher from the local high school who may not even know he could be a trainer is a better trainer than some of these, jerk-offs in the gym who are just trying to make a few quick, easy bucks because they're too lazy to go get any other kind of job.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did I answer that correctly, or
yes,
did I go off?
No,
Okay.
no, that was good there, and that's a good point too. If you brought that, training aspect, and we haven't really talked about it on our podcast yet, but there's a lot of different certifications out there, and some are literally like you go online, you fill out the exam, and you can be a certified personal trainer in like 15 minutes. You just pop out the exam, they pay your $100 or whatever. So, what are maybe some? Do you have any certifications you have more preference towards, or certain degrees that you would say that's the kind of person you look out for, who'd be probably a better trainer than from this agency or whatnot?
I tell people bare minimum. See if anyone has at least a physical education degree. You don't have to have a degree in exercise physiology. You don't have to be a physical therapist. At the bare minimum, have physical education degree. With any kind of degree on top of that would be great. Now, I even mentioned in the book, if you're going to take a trainer that has nothing more than some kind of certificate, it almost doesn't matter which certificate they have. Mm-hmm. So find the old guys that maybe have been doing it for 30 years, 40 years. Find a guy. I even said if you can find a guy that spent time in prison, they usually figure out how to work out, with little or no equipment, better than anyone else with these fake degrees. And I know it sounds like a joke when I say it, but find someone, look around. If the guy looks like he's a steroid head, stay away from that guy. He's basically a drug abuser. If your trainer has a fat gut, I was in 24-hour fitness the other day in Woodland Hills, California, getting a little workout in, half the trainers there had a gut. As a matter of fact, if they hadn't had a red shirt with block lettering that said trainer on it, I would have thought that the person they were training was the trainer. I mean, that's how crazy it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that too in the gym there. So you go in the gym, you see the really overweight, trainer, and they could probably benefit from doing a little bit more training themselves. And I think I looked at the statistic the other day. It's like 69% of all U.S. adults over the age of 20 are either overweight or obese. So close to 70% of the population there.
Yeah, it's crazy. And more alarming, we have toddlers now who are obese. We have kids being born with metabolic syndrome who are obese. I mean, it's a problem. And the problem is, we're consuming more sugar than ever. We're consuming more grains than ever. And, everyone's, oh, no, Vinny, you don't understand. I eat whole wheat. No, Vinny, you don't understand. I eat quinoa. That's all good. No. It's all grain. It all goes to your liver the same way. Your body doesn't go, hey, wait, it's quinoa. I'm just not going to get a glycogen spike because it's quinoa. And that's not the truth. It's just not. And that's kind of the problem with what's going on. We really need to cut some of these glycogen spikes out of our system. And the only way you can do that is sugars and grains. And by the way, I always give my favorite example. And your audience is going, some people in your audience are going to hear this. If you go out to a triathlon or a marathon, you see these really beautiful, sinewy-looking people coming in at 2.5 hours in a marathon. The rest of the time, by the time you get to the 4 and 5 hour mark, you see sometimes 250 and 300-pound people waddling through. So you have to ask yourself, is exercise going to really make you lose weight? Because why the hell are these people so heavy? They started running because they thought they were going to lose weight. They ran enough to be able to compete and finish a marathon in 4.5 or 5 hours. Why are they still heavy? Shouldn't they be thin, like the guy that came in 2.5 hours? They're not. And the reason they're not is because, we have chocolate milk people telling us, hey, this is a great recovery drink. And we have Gatorade saying, hey, this is how, you're going to sweat orange if you take this, and this is great stuff. Their good intentions have been stolen. And that's what we talk about on the Angriest Trainer Podcast. Your good intentions have been stolen. My job is to help you get it back. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, oh, you know what? I weigh 350 pounds. I love being this weight. They wake up and they feel loathsome, and they're heavy, and they're lumbering, and they're not happy with themselves. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. And that's what we're trying to fix.
And I was going to ask you a little bit of that here, too. You kind of hit on your philosophy on nutrition there. So no sugar, no grains, and you're saying that helps out with, obviously, body composition. So a person's going to drop body fat, drop weight. Are there also other benefits beyond just, losing pounds on the scale for a person, like, the way they feel, allergies I've seen kind of indicated, too, when people drop certain grains, gluten from their diet. So what other areas might people get a benefit from no sugar, no grains?
How much time do you have? How long do you want the podcast to go on for? Because I'm about to ramble here. Sit back and enjoy, James. By the way, how many people give you crap about being named James Brown?
Every day, all the time. And I've gotten so used to it now, I'm kind of immune to it, but it's actually good because it's a great icebreaker for situations. So I give speeches and stuff across my base here, and James Brown's a great icebreaker. So you can't really beat it. So
you really can't. Being Vinnie, I'm a 51-year-old Vinnie. Vinnie should have been done when I was 12, but somehow here I'm 51, I'm still Vinnie. And just today, right before I got here, I was introduced to this woman, and she went, yo, Vinnie. Still, 51. I still have to hear people do the yo, Vinnie thing. Or I get some kind of Joe Pesci, my cousin Vinnie attitude. So I can only imagine what you go through. But let's get back to your question about, besides getting fat, what else sugar and grains can do to you. Well, 30 years ago, if you weren't even born yet, I'm looking at your skin. There was no way you were born.
Nope, not yet.
The only people that had fatty liver disease were alcoholics, people who drank an exorbitant amount of liquor. had fatty liver disease. Now it's part of our metabolic syndrome. People have sleep apnea. That almost didn't exist 30 years ago. Now it's rampant. People sleep with these masks on their face just to be able to breathe while they sleep and not die. We have, all of the heart disease comes from the sugar and grain. Everybody wants to say, oh, it's cholesterol, take a statin. It's not cholesterol, it's not a statin. All of that comes from the hardening of your arteries. Guess what causes that? Sugars and grains. What's another one? Did I mention fatty liver disease? What else comes from? You name it. There's no end to what's happening to people based on all the sugars and grain. From all the grain we're taking in, people have celiac disease. That's a real thing. That comes from a protein that is in our, bread. There's a protein that causes celiac disease. And gluten. There's people out there that think, oh, if I go gluten-free, I'm going to lose weight. No. Gluten is a protein that's in wheat that causes celiac disease because our body, when you get so much of it, we can't fight it off anymore. Someone's phone is ringing. I'm in someone's house, and don't worry about that.
Okay.
We have people that have leptin resistance, insulin resistance. That all comes from sugar and grain. Once you become resistant to that, you know what happens? You get a little something called type 2 diabetes. So you might not even get fat from sugar and grains, but you can still get a little something called type 2 diabetes. And guess what the doctors do whenever you get that? Do they tell you to stop eating sugars and grains? No. You know what they tell you? Have whole wheat. Have sprouted wheat. Have quinoa. Guess what? That's not going to get rid of your problems, and the doctors know that. What it's going to do is allow the doctors to sell you 3 or 4 drugs so that they can afford to send their kids to private schools, so that their kids can become doctors, so that we can keep perpetuating the problem. That's the problem. I hate to sound like a conspiracy guy, and I'm not, but hey, let's call it what it is. These doctors have bills to pay. And if they can hand out 4 and 5 drugs to someone, people come on to, I've had no less than 100 people come on to that Vinnie Tortorich's Facebook group. It's called the Vinnie Tortorich's No Sugars, No Grains. I don't own the group. It's got my name on it. I'm a member like everyone else. And they're all saying things like, I had to take 4 drugs. I had to take 5 drugs. I was taking a statin. I was taking 3 drugs for type 2 diabetes. All I did was cut out sugars and grains. A year later, I've lost 100 pounds. Fill in the blank. I've lost 75 pounds. I've lost 120 pounds. I'm not taking a statin anymore. I don't have type 2 diabetes. They still have the disease, but all the symptoms have gone away. This all happens automatically when they lose the weight. Their blood pressure goes down. Imagine that. You cut out sugars and grains, blood pressure problem gone. And I get to see that. It makes me feel good because I used to only work with, as I called it, tens of people. You understand that because you're a trainer. You only get to work with a certain number of people. Now, like me, you get to work with more people through this podcast. That's a big thing, James. And please don't abuse that because I'm telling you, you and John are going to be huge. I see what you guys have going on. I love your podcast. Be true to these people because you need to keep that good message going out there. You guys are going to be huge sooner than you think. So, really pay attention to it.
Thank
You're going to be not helping tens of people, but hundreds of thousands of people. And that's a cool thing, but it's also a responsibility.
That's true. Thank you. We appreciate it. And I actually, listen, I think it was a couple of episodes ago, you were on the same kind of topic. I think you had the guest on talking about how eliminating, I think it was like dairy and grains or gluten from his son's diet. He had autism, his son with autism there, and it helped out those symptoms that he had. I forget his name.
His name is Arshad. And he makes a bar called the Amrita bar. And I told him before he came on the show, I said, we can mention your bar, on the show, but I have to let people know that I don't agree with your bar because it has sugar in it and it has some grains. But as far as a bar goes, a sports bar, it's 1,000% better than anything else out there because there's no preservatives in it. It's wholesome. but I think there's 9 grams of sugar, which is way less than, say, a Power Bar or a Cliff Bar or any other bar. So it's a lot better, but I couldn't give him my stamp of approval, which, by the way, he appreciated me telling him that before he came on the show. But I really wanted to have our shot on because the doctors, as you know from that show, told him that his kid had autism and would basically be, in a retarded state his entire life and be a problem to the state, if you can understand what I'm saying. And this guy said, no, my kid's going to be normal, and I'm going to feed my kid real whole foods. I'm going to give my kid, food that doesn't have any kind of preservatives in it. I'm going to give him all the good vegetables. I'm going to give him good meat. I'm going to give him, I think he's a vegetarian though, but he's giving his kid all wholesome, great foods. And guess what? The kid has autism, but he has no sign of autism. Wow. He just has, this kid is in regular class with everyone else learning at the same rate. Pretty amazing, right?
That's amazing.
But told him that was impossible.
And that's so awesome when the parents take that proactive role and kind of, they did some research and they, changed his dietary habits, and it obviously led to these great benefits, this outstanding result that you're just talking about with them. And if some of our listeners were to ask, okay, I want to cut out, I'm on board with this, I want to cut out the grains and the sugars, what foods are those in? What foods would you tell them that probably they're eating right now?
Well, the simple foods, of course, things like corn chips, this sort of thing. Potato chips fall into that category because a potato is basically 100 on the glycemic index scale. So those kind of things have to go. But then you have your pastas. People ask me about rice all the time. If you're going to have a small staple of any kind of grain, rice is probably the best one. But I don't agree with people eating a whole lot of it. Parents ask me all the time about sandwiches. They want to send their kid to school with a really wholesome sandwich. And I explain to them that 2 slices of bread is not the problem. So, if a kid's going to school with 2 slices of bread with avocado in there, with really good wholesome cold cuts, or some kinds of meat and some lettuce and tomato, you don't have a problem yet. It's when the kid starts drinking fruit juices, which is nothing but a bottle full of sugar. There's nothing healthy about a fruit juice. There's nothing healthy about a vegetable juice. Now, if you took like a Vitamix or a Blendtec or any of these high-speed blenders and put the whole fruit or the whole vegetable in there, now you have the non-soluble fiber mixed with the vegetable or the fruit, so you're not going to get a spike. Those things are fine. So I usually start people with that. And then the next question they always have is, what about diet soft drinks? And then I tell them, all diet soft drinks, anything sweetener, diet sweetener, off the table. And then they come back with one more. What about stevia? That's a fake sweetener. Yeah, I know it comes from the plant, but really not good. Really not good stuff. You just got to cut this stuff out. So does that mean you can never have birthday cake, wedding cake? Does that mean I can't have Haagen-Dazs once a month? Not at all. We do a thing on my show called Putting Life into Living. That doesn't mean you take a whole Saturday like Tim Ferriss would tell you to do, or one day a week where you just blow it out. I don't believe in that, because if you blow it out on Sunday, your body's going to be fighting it on Monday and Tuesday. By Wednesday, your body's going to just start to come back. By Thursday, your body's going to just get back to where it was before. Friday will be your first day, and by Sunday, you're doing it again. So it's really not a good idea to blow it out. But if you're somewhere and they have the best gelato in the world, or the best tiramisu anyone has ever had, enjoy that. That's what a treat is all about. It's supposed to be a treat. We weren't meant to drink 48-ounce and 64-ounce Cokes every day. Do you know they now make a thing where you can wear like a strap around your neck to hang the 64-ounce Coke, and it's an extra long straw to go into your mouth?
I've never seen that.
That product is on the market. We found it on the podcast. We talked about 2 weeks ago on the Angriest Trainer Podcast. It really exists.
Wow, I've seen the beer can thing, where it's like you got the 2 beer cans right here.
Yeah.
And I've never seen one for like a big gulp or whatever.
That was always meant as a joke. This is as a real thing. It's like a cowbell. I guess we need more cowbell. Give me more cowbell.
Need more big gulp there. So like a regular day-to-day diet then, would you say like, because, you got fruit sugar, from the fruits there, like fructose. So a day-to-day diet is like an apple okay, a banana okay? You're mainly staying away from like man-made processed sugars or?
Yeah, here's how I talk about fruit. All fruit are good, but there's some fruit you may want to stay away from and some fruit you want to have more of. The fruit, you can eat all fruit, all whole fruit. You might want to stay away from the tropical fruit if you're having a weight problem or if you have type 2 diabetes, because they could cause a little bit of a sugar spike. We're talking about your pineapples, your bananas, your tropical fruit, your mango. But when you get into just oranges and apples, knock yourself out. Just don't have 10 of them a day. Mm-hmm. The ones you really want to have are your berries, your strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, any kind of berry, because they are the lowest glycemic index fruit. Vegetables, most people, I have more vegetarians, I think, listening to me than I have anything else. I don't know why, but, for some reason, vegetarians don't hate me, and the paleo group can stand me because I'm telling people to eat meat, and I'm telling people to eat vegetables. I'm somewhere in the middle. That's not by design. That's by the fact that I've been a Jack LaLanne fan my entire life, and I believe in eating red meat, and I believe in eating a lot of vegetables. Get all of those phytonutrients, get all of your macro and micronutrients, and have a good, wholesome life.
Now, speaking of nutrients, do you recommend people take like, I know, most people take like a multivitamin, omega-3s. What's your kind of stance on sports supplements or nutritional supplements like that?
I'm not a big fan. I mentioned in the book, Fitness Confidential, that if you take a multivitamin every day, that's a good thing. It's kind of an insurance policy, just in case you don't get everything you need that particular day. But if you're eating, just a rainbow of vegetables and fruits, and you're getting meat every day, you're getting every vitamin you need. There's no study that shows that vitamin C will cure a cold or stop a cold. Vitamin E won't do anything for you. As a matter of fact, there's more studies showing where vitamin E will hurt you more than help you. Most of the bodybuilder supplements out there, save for steroids, because we know steroids work, but all of the other stuff just is, in trial studies when they've taken breakdowns of proteins and amino acid and they've injected huge sums into animals or humans, they've had some kind of ergogenic effect. But whenever they do it, whenever you start ingesting this stuff, you're taking in one piece of an amino acid that's going to mix with everything else in your stomach, and it really won't cause any effect. So you're wasting a lot of money by doing that. So I'm just not a big fan. Not a big fan at all. Do I believe people should take calcium and magnesium? Absolutely, especially if you're in a sport where you sweat a lot. You should take, I believe in taking electrolytes. Not Gatorade, not any of the other sport drinks. You can buy a little pill. My favorite is salt sticks, and no, salt sticks do not sponsor me. I like S-Caps also. They do not sponsor me. I take those products. I believe in them. When you sweat a lot, you need them.
Okay, so like electrolytes with those sticks rather than like the big 60 gram of sugar, Powerade, Gatorade, all that stuff out there. Okay.
Oh, that stuff is just pure crap.
So
it's a parade.
So if someone's like trying to do like an endurance event, like a marathon or something, I know a lot of people like do the carb loading, right? So they'll do like a couple of days of like low carb intake, and then they'll super compensate with a larger amount of carbohydrate intake. How do you attack the problem then if a person's not eating sugars and grains? Of they come to you and say, hey, I'm going to run a marathon in 5 months. What should I eat before or during or?
I'm an ultra endurance athlete. I've gone 500 miles plus on a bike nonstop.
Wow.
We talk about it in the book. And I work with ultra endurance athletes. I mentioned Shannon Griefer earlier. You can do it running on ketones. We do it all the time. I eat a very high-fat diet when I'm training. I take no carbs in before I take off. I take in no carbs on the bike, and do just fine. And there are a lot more athletes doing that, more and more. As a matter of fact, if you ever want to have me back, we could do a whole show just on preparing and prepping and living on ketones. I don't live on ketones all the time, but I'm very well fat adapted. I can literally go a whole day without eating.
Oh, wow. Okay, so ketones are the alternative energy source your body uses beyond glucose, right? So,
right.
When your body makes ketones out of, I believe, fat and proteins. So it's another alternative fuel source. I think they provide 7.5 calories per gram there. So they're actually a really good fuel source for your body. And,
it's your body's preferred fuel source. And that was the thing when I was at Tulane. Tulane is a medical university, and my professors were probably some of the most knowledgeable men in the world, and women. And there was a form of cognitive dissonance, since we're talking about carb loading. They had me believe that they would always say, well, fat is your body's preferred fuel. But if you're going to go out for a long run, you need to take in a lot of carbs. Mm-hmm. And I would say, well, why do I have to take in carbs if my body prefers to use fat? And they would always say, because when you run out of your glycogen, your body doesn't cross over to burning fat very efficiently, so you need to keep taking in more carbs. Okay? And by the way, that old wives' tale of, starve yourself for 3 or 4 days before your event, and then the day before start carb loading, that doesn't prove to do anything except give you gastrointestinal problems. It's never shown that anyone can absorb any more carbs than they can normally absorb by depleting and then trying to overcarb themselves. I mean, that's like putting leeches on your body to cure cancer. It just doesn't work. It's been proven over and over and over in clinical trials. It does not work, period. You may think it works. It may work in your head, but it's not working. So going back to that cognitive dissonance, mm-hmm. It was that caused me to start questioning that, 35 years ago. And it wasn't until I started reading 5 and 6 years ago, Dr. Vinnie and Volek were doing a lot of work getting athletes to go long distances being fat adapted. And I started playing around with it. And then Peter Attia and some of these guys a couple of years ago started playing with it more. After my 2008 Furnace Creek 508, when I was throwing up after the 15th hour as always, because I was taking in so many sugars, I was in the middle of that race throwing up thinking, I got to do something different. I got to find another way. And I started paying attention to Vinnie and Volek, started paying attention to what Peter Attia was doing, started paying attention to a lot of people. Dr. Lustig was doing a lot of things. And I started reading back on some studies, and that's when I crossed over. And as you know, a lot of athletes, a lot of endurance guys are crossing over now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, I've seen a lot of that too, where people are more so kind of doing the, not focusing so much on the carbohydrates there, but eating more of the protein and fats, like you're mentioning there.
Yeah.
So, kind of last section here I want to get on is maybe if you could tell us, we always love asking this of our guests here, because it basically shows, if someone's listening to this show, they could get this really good tip out of it. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and tell your 18-year-old self something about training and nutrition, what would you tell yourself?
The one thing that I wasn't doing then that I would do now is I would have known more about Zone 2 training, about staying in an aerobic zone. I knew it by the time I was 19 or 20 because of exercise physiology. I knew that, I knew what the answer was. Yet, being young, I didn't have the ability to make that happen. Every time I went out, I wanted to go balls to the wall, mm-hmm. and figured that was the only way I could train. Just train as hard as I can all the time, even though I knew the truth. It really took a lot of generations for me to. And the funny part is, I would train other people that way. Mm-hmm. really thought I was special, that I could get it because I'd been an athlete my whole life. That's the one thing I go back. I do a lot more volume and zone 2 training.
Zone 2 training. Okay. And if people want to get more information on Zone 2 training, I think you have an episode where you kind of go into more of that.
We talk about, we do a lot of, I wish I could remember, we have 165 or 170 shows out. But they can just go back on VinnieTortorich.com and see which Angriest Trainer Podcast mentions Zone 2, because we mentioned it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And we have, I just had a triathlete last week, Mandy Farrar, called in. She had her PR in a triathlon. We get these calls every week of people, PRing all these races based on the fact that I convinced them in these shows to go back to Zone 2.
Okay. Awesome. So, yeah, for our listeners listening out there, go to Vinnie's website there. It's VinnieTortorich.com.
Yeah.
And you can check out his older podcasts there and look for those Zone 2 topics there. So you can also find Vinnie on Apple iTunes and Stitcher Radio, correct?
Yep.
Anywhere else? Obviously, you got a Facebook page. Do you have a Twitter?
I have I am on Twitter, Vinnie Tortorich on Twitter. Facebook page, I think it's called Vinnie Tortorich Athlete page. But I'll tell you this, one of the pages everyone loves to go to is the page I have nothing to do with. It's called Vinnie Tortorich's No Sugar, No Grain. It's on Facebook. Last time I checked, I think it was close to 900 people in that group. They're the coolest, nicest people in the world. And if you go to that group and say, hey, which episode can I learn about fat adaptation? What episode can I learn about give me a Zone 2 training? Where can I learn about going into ketosis? They actually have a frequently asked question area right there on their website. I go in there every day just to check in and see what they're talking about. There are people in there that have lost 150 pounds by helping each other. Nobody pays for anything. I don't make a dime on it. It's just it's the coolest group ever because it's just people helping people. And every now and then I'll chime in and help. I'd like to see you there, actually. You guys could probably give a lot of help. Just say, hey, I have this podcast too, and Vinnie and I spoke, and they'll come and listen to your podcast. That's the kind of group they are. So you could go there. I didn't mean to take you out of you. I know you were going into your final thing here, but that and, of course, the book, Fitness Confidential, you can get on Amazon or anywhere else. iBooks. No.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you. We for our listeners out there, you just heard Vinnie talk about some resources you can go to, and if you go to that Facebook page, like you mentioned there's a lot of people out there willing to help you that you don't have to, pay for or join this, program or whatever else and spend, $100 a month to do. So that's probably a great resource for you if you're looking to, find more information on those topics and to lose some body weight, some body fat as well. So check out Vinnie's book, check out his website as well, and his podcast for that great information there. So lastly, I always like to ask this at the end here, is there anything you'd like to say to our listeners before we sign off here, Vinnie?
Take a deep breath. People come to these podcasts because sometimes they're lost and they just want it all to happen tomorrow. You didn't get heavy, you didn't get out of shape in one day. It's going to take more than one day to get back in shape. Take a deep breath, and as we say on my podcast, put life into living and do it with enthusiasm because you only get one life. And you'll learn about that in my book. I almost lost mine. And that whole story is in Fitness Confidential.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the show, Vinnie. We super appreciate it here. It's awesome having a person with your knowledge to come on the show to spread that with our viewers and everything for free. So thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. And we definitely want to have you back on. So maybe here in a few weeks we can get you back on and talk about the ultra endurance, ketone stuff you were just saying you could do like a whole episode on. So that'd be awesome.
That would be great.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, take care, Vinnie, and we'll see you guys next week with next week's episode. And look out for Vinnie's here coming up soon.
Thank you, man.
Take care.
Have a good day.
You too.
Hey everyone, we hope you enjoyed James's interview with Vinnie Tortorich. If you want to hear more from Vinnie, be sure to check out Angriest Trainer Podcast. And if you want to check out his book, we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Again, that's called Fitness Confidential. I just read it, and I would definitely recommend it to everyone. He talks about a lot of things in there that most books and most people don't touch on. You know, even down to buying a gym membership. Just little tips and tricks that you can do to make sure that you get a better price. So be sure to check out his book. Also, be sure to check us out on iTunes, and be sure to leave us one of those all-important 5-star iTunes reviews. Also, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. And if you have any questions, be sure to email us, either james@ergogenicpodcast.com or john@ergogenicpodcast.com. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsor, Athletic Edge Nutrition. You can check them out at www.aenutrition.com. As well as a special thanks to Mike Knowledge for creating this awesome intro-outro song called Get in Game. So we hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and we'll see you guys next week.
Gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Boy, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Boy, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga, no pain, no games. Boy, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Boy, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Boy, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga, no pain, no games. You don't fuck up now, nigga. Diesel in the building when the waves hit the flow. Yeah, feel like I'm chillin'. No days off. What? I ain't never chillin'. Better come correct, man. I'll hit your feelings. No games, no games. Sippin' on that way. No play, no way. Yo, I'm knocking out these weights. I'm trippin'. I just took 3 scoops. I'm lifting. You know what it do. Better watch your step. Boy, I throw these weights. Don't ask me what's my set, cause you gon' wait. Whoa, what's that? Watch that form on whack. I can tell you new, bitch, cause you curl when the squad whack. I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga. No pain, no games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga. No pain, no games. Turn there some weight, go and throw a plate. I make this look like cake, a bull rushing out the gate. Let him hate as I navigate to captivate, elaborate. I just pump the stakes, never pump my brakes. Best believe I'ma get these games. When everybody gone, I'm the only one remain. Maybe I'm insane, addicted to the pain. Snow, sleet, or rain, skull crushes to the brain. Just warming up, I ain't even break a sweat. I'm killing every rep, destroying every set. You know that's a bet. A fiend for protein, I'm out for more cream. So hot, I'm smoking. So oh please, I'm out your way. I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga. No pain, no games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga. No pain, no games. Looking like a swole, 100 days straight, and I got 100 more. Even if you try, you can never break my road. First in my kind, I had to break the mold. Feeling bold off these back roads. Don't act like you don't know I'm a pro. This bench be my throne and in my zone, getting toned. I get it on my own, to be told. But the caddy it goes, there he goes. Music on blast, kicking ass on my hustle, building muscle. My job is never done, get your weight up, cause I do this shit for fun. Niggas better run, son. Mike Diesel on the hunt. I'm dedicated, waiting on the day I can finally say I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga. No pain, no games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Bro, I gotta get these games, gotta get these games. Insane for these games, nigga. No pain, no games. Look house boss, baby. Yo, y'all lifting today? Rest day? What that mean? It's chest day, nigga. You trying to do legs tomorrow? You don't do legs. What? Forget these games, bitch.